Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you my exercise routine for the pipes. Now, a lot of my exercises are modified versions of the different movements, but they're modified based on some information I got from a book called The Piper's Helper. It's kind of a handbook or a guide on exercises that you can do for piping. For doing embellishments. You can get this at a lot of different Highland supply houses. And what they've done in this book is to take a particular movement and break it down into its individual components so you can isolate areas of concern. Now, this book is by no means comprehensive, nor do I say that my exercises are 100% comprehensive. But I'll show you what I do. And in some cases, I'll stop and explain why I do it. See if I can't get this adjusted so you can see both hands well. Okay, so my exercises start off with a simple G Gracenote scale, then D Gracenote, and then E Gracenote. And I try and make big Gracenotes whenever I do these. So we start right on low G with a G Gracenote. D Gracenote scale. E Gracenote scale. And then I move on to GDEs. We do GDEs because most of our movements are in that order. Your low hand doublings would mostly be G and then D, and then movements like grips typically start with a G Gracenote on whatever note you have, and then a D Gracenote to whatever note you're going to end on. And then movements like Tourluaths and Crunluaths, the sequence of Gracenotes is typically a G Gracenote on whatever note you're doing, and then your embellishment, which follows that pattern. So my first GDEs will be even. 1, 2. Then I would do a held cut GDE, which would be more like this. Then a cut held one. I also do one that's a GDE on the note and then to E, and that is for a movement in piobaireachd called a Crunluath. So it will be the next movement I would do would be Tachums, which is, the first ones I'll do will just be a G Gracenote on C to low A with a D Gracenote. And then I do the B to low G. So it would be something like this. And round it would be and you might want to work in a quick B to the C one and then a quick low A to the B one for practice, because that happens in tunes. You can also play those cut, kind of how I just did, but and you could also do those with your quick B or low A. And then there's GDEs, so on Tachums, GDEs. So the first would be round on C to low A and then B to low G. So then held cut. Then cut held. And any of one of those could be done with a quick B or quick low A. So you could do, no. Or, sorry. Any one of the Tachums can be done in that manner because a lot of tunes have that in there where there'll be a quick B or a quick low A. The next movement would be what I call a Telican, which is just a C doubling with an E Gracenote to low A or a B doubling with an E Gracenote to low A. And you could do the quick note in there as well. So again, that still follows the GDE pattern. Then I would do my throw on Ds. My throw on Ds, I do the heavy style, which is starting from low G. You can't do them from D. And then the rest of my exercises for the next little bit are just the doublings, from low A doubling all the way to high A doubling or a high A strike. And these all kind of follow the same pattern that you will find in the Piper's Helpers book. However, they start off with the full doubling up to speed, then progress to the slowest speed and the medium speed. I start off with the slowest speed, then medium, and then the full speed doublings. So I'm going to just run through all of these without interruption. So it'll go low A doubling, B, C, D, E, F. There's a couple things I do on the E that I'll show you. So here we go. At this point, I would do a separate exercise for E doublings because I'm not very happy with how my E doublings sound off of a quick F. So I would do this as an exercise for making those better. What I find is whenever I'm playing a tune and I have to do that, my hands tighten down. So when I do this exercise, I make sure that my hands are really loose when I do that. So now on to the G doubling, F doubling. Then I would do double strikes on high A. Typically when I do it, I do one slow one and then a medium speed one. So it would alternate going up the scale. And then what some people call a high A burl, which is 3 strikes on high A. And I would do the same thing there. One slow one and then one medium speed one, alternating as you go up the scale. From there, I move on to my strikes. So I start off with the strikes, and then I move on to hornpipe strikes. So I would do a strike on low A from all of the notes up the scale, and then move on to the B strike, C strike, D strike. So. full strikes on D. There are the light strikes which only go to C. I don't usually practice those because I think once you can do a full strike, it's easy to do the partial strike. If you have a problem with that, you can work that into your exercise routine. So on to the E strikes. And then the first time we've encountered a piobaireachd, or that I do in my exercises, is here. A piobaireachd is just with your middle finger down on your top hand. So a regular high G, but like that. So I do strikes on that as well. Oh. And you can see it takes a little bit more brain power, and I messed up. From there, I move on to my hornpipe strikes, which are, most of them are a G Gracenote, then an E Gracenote, followed by your strike until you get to the top hand. So starting off with the low A. Before I move on to the F hornpipe strike, which you don't really ever see, the D hornpipe strike can also be done just to C. But the F hornpipe strike, when I practice it, I do a full strike rather than a light strike on that one. So. And obviously these are, hornpipes, so they're rather quick typically. I mean, you'll see them in jigs too, but so if you're not playing them very well at that speed, there's no reason to practice them at that speed. You have to break it down and find out where your error is, where your fingers get confused, or where your hand tightens up, and play it slowly enough that you can control that. The next thing I move on to are bubbly notes. These probably have proper terminology, but there are a few different styles of them. So the first one is a basic one, either from D or from C, with a B Gracenote to low A. So I do 3 of these in a row, do a slow one, then a medium one, and then a faster one. So I would do then and if I missed any of those, if I missed one of the slower ones rather than the fast one, I wouldn't do the fast one. My thought on this and my opinion on this is that if you just did one of them, as far as your exercises go, and you missed it, then you've missed it 100% of the time. And if you do one slow one and then one fast one and you miss the fast one, now you've only gotten it right half the time and wrong half the time. So there's really not a consistency of doing it correctly. So I like to do it at a slow enough speed that I at least get 2 right ones in and possibly miss one of the faster ones. Then the next one is a bubbly note that starts, you can either do it from D, C, B, or low G. And it has a D grace note followed by C grace note and then a B. So each one progressively faster. And then there's some tunes that have that movement with an E grace note down to the low G first. I wasn't happy with that in my playing in one of my competition tunes, so I break that down as well. Then I moved on to my, some movements that are in piobaireachd. I don't really know the name of them. One of them is an Edres, but from low G, not from low A. So. And then the same movement, the same Edres movement, but to a piobaireachd high G. So you heard I missed one of them, so I would do that a few more times. Without trying to speed it up. So I make sure I get in a few of them that are proper. Then I move on to my typical Edres movements. I go up the scale, slowed down, and then when I come back down the scale, it's a little bit faster. Then I do my Dari movements in the same manner, going up the scale slowly and then back down a little bit faster. Then I do my grips. There are a lot of grips, and this probably doesn't cover all of them, but these are the ones that I do. So I'll just run through them. Now we move on to the D grip from D to E. In this one, we have an B grace note. This is only the second time we've run into a B grace note, I believe. One of them in the bubbly note movement, but this one would be, oh, sorry. So you can see I had one with a little C grace note in it. So I typically don't play these quickly whenever I do my grip exercises, and I do more than just 3 on it. So I would do like 5 of them nice and slowly. Then continuing up the scale. much of piobaireachd, you can do your piobaireachd grip. Then your grips from low hand, grips to high A. The D one again has the B Gracenote in it, so I would do that about 5 times, but slowly. There's all sorts of grips. You can do grips from high A to high G, from any note to any note. So there's a lot of them in there. So if you find that you have a problem with one, just separate that particular grip movement and isolate it, slow it down, and make big grace notes, and hopefully it will improve. The next thing I do are Tourluaths. So starting with low A. Same thing here with the D, B Gracenote. Then there is a Tourluaths, a mock, which we did on the B and C as we went up the scale, but didn't do it on the D. So a D is a G grace note on B, a throw on D, and then an E grace note. Then I move on to Crunluaths. So in the Crunluaths, you'll only have the high G because it is a piobaireachd movement. So you would, unless someone wrote it into light music from high G, anytime you encounter this movement from high G, you will be playing it from a piobaireachd high G. So starting off from low A. So that wasn't very clean. I do it again. there are Crunluaths, which we didn't do working up the scale. So the B Crunluaths is a grip on B, and then your Edres movement. The C is a grip on C, Edres movement, and then the D one is the same as the Tourluaths, where you do the throw on D and E Gracenote, but then you do your Edres movement. So you would do the Edres movement actually on the note you're on. So a grip of B Crunluaths would be. And then from there I move on to Birls, and I do quite a lot of Birl exercises because I lost my Birl for a while. So I'm going to see if I can't tilt the camera a little bit to show more of what I do with my bottom hand. So I do the slide pull, or the figure 7, number 7 style of Birl. Some people do the Birl, the bump curl. Some do just slide, either down and then up, or some people do up and then down. Whichever one is your style, you can essentially do what I'm doing, break it down for your style. So on this one, I work my way down the scale. And I do, like I said, quite a number of Birl exercises. So I'll just run through them. And before I move on, actually, I've got some tape here on my low G. And what I was noticing when I did my Birls was my pinky would barely pass the hole. And so then I wouldn't have a clean low A sound. So that tape down there is like an indicator that my pinky has gone excessively far. So I know I've passed the hole. So when I do my Birl exercises, I try and make sure that my pinky touches the tape. I believe you can see it there in the video. So starting again. Then I move on to the ones that give everyone a hard time, which are the Birls from D and from C. But I concentrate on ensuring that when I go from the D or C to low A, that my hand is loose. Because the Birl movement isn't the problem, it's just the transition of going to low A and moving this pinky to where it needs to go. I believe the people that do the bump curl method have a little bit easier time because their pinky just comes straight up and then down. Or if you do the number 7, your pinky kind of has to move to the top, towards the top part of your chanter. So I would do. And then I was having a real hard time with Birls from B for a while. And so instead of just being satisfied that I'd done a few from B, I do kind of the same exercise that I just did from the D and C ones, but I go further into isolating some of the problems with that. So the first one would be just like the D or C Birls. found that it was the quick B that made the burl sound bad. So then I incorporated a really quick B into there, but then slowed the burl down. So and I just tried to make sure that when I did that quick B to the low A, that my hand wasn't really tight. My fingers are really straight, but they're not flexed back like that. They're just naturally straight. Then I would move on to a slower B, but almost a normal speed burl. So So doing these burl exercises very slowly, or how fast that I just did them, kind of gives you a range of what speed you can play your burls at, because some tunes don't call for very quick burls. If you play them that way, or it's the only way you can play them, you will possibly miss out on some music. And then my last exercise is a burl that you would find in pibroch, which is an E with a D Gracenote to low A and then the burl. So I just do a few of those. Some other things I like to do so it doesn't get so monotonous, because this is already 42 minutes almost of watching paint dry. It's pretty boring. I try and find tunes that, say, my hand has a problem in, but slow it down to the point where I can utilize it as an exercise. So a tune that I have a problem with is Bogan Lockin'. I believe the fifth part has some quick B's, burls, quick B's to a burl from D. So rather than playing it up to speed and being unhappy with it, doing something like see, that was clean, but a lot of times I miss it, and that's not very good practice. So I would probably, if I get my pipes out, some of the first things I would do is thinking of some of those tunes and doing that sort of exercise in the tune, but slowly. So even there, I just missed a C doubling. So the C doubling needs to be worked on. John Morrison of Ascent House, another tune that has some quick B's to burls. So like the first part. So I don't like that. That didn't sound good to me. So I would slow that down to being more like. And work it out that way. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below.